So I'm sure some people have wondered where I've been. I've been busy dealing with life and loss. But I have been thinking a lot lately about making a quick video with regards to protection dogs, breeding, training, and how so many people seem to think that it's black or white, and it is so far from that. And the people that you see on the internet that say it's this way or that way, they're amateurs. Everybody that comes into the protection dog game always seems to think it's this way or that way. And they either grow and evolve and realize they were wrong, or they stay that way and they get nowhere. They stay stuck because there's so many different paths, and it really depends on what you're doing. If you're breeding dogs for protection dogs, then you shouldn't be conditioning. You shouldn't be doing a lot of different things with them other than testing, plain and simple, because you don't know what you have if you're not testing the dog. If you're conditioning a dog, then you're hiding stuff. You're covering up potential weaknesses. People think just because a dog comes out and acts incredibly defensive and puts on a big display that that's a great dog, and that is not the truth. My Chihuahua is incredibly defensive, and she'll put on a hell of a display. You can kick at her, you can throw things at her, you can get within inches of her face, and you can appear extremely aggressive and like you are going to kill her, and she won't back down. But I guarantee you that if somebody kicked her or hit her or in any way fought back and appeared to not be showing a little bit of fear by running off scampering because she barked and feeding into her ego, then she would flight. And so many people don't understand that. They think that because their dog hits the end of the leash with such aggression, and then of course the guy's going to run off, because you're conditioning that behavior. You're building confidence. But a good dog doesn't need that done. When I was breeding my Dutch Shepherds, a lot of people didn't like what I was doing, and I tested my dogs because I was breeding dogs strictly with the intention of breeding better police dogs and personal protection dogs. I didn't deal with weakness. I didn't give a shit what lines they came out of. And I'll tell you, most of the best lines that were coming out of Holland, I just kept giving those dogs away because I didn't like what I saw. When I was testing a dog, if I saw any sign of weakness, it was just gone. I didn't make an excuse for it. I didn't tiptoe around it and say, okay, come up to the dog and then run away. I just had people who had no experience in what they were doing, because people on the street don't have experience in how to agitate a dog and how to work a dog. So I wasn't tiptoeing around my dogs to make them feel stronger. Of course, I wanted them to feel stronger. I wanted them to feel like they won. But in between the beginning and the ending process of the dog winning, I wanted to see the dog, how far the dog could be pushed. I wanted to see what the dog could take. And I just allowed people to push my dogs. And a lot of that stuff you won't see on video because people go crazy and they think it's cruel. But the reality is, these dogs are protecting human lives on the street. So I, as a breeder, needed to be sure I was breeding the best I could breed. But however, getting back to the people that condition, you can hide anything when you condition a dog. You can take any dog, and with the right timing and the right training and, whatever, you can make any dog look like a superstar. But The minute a dog bites a person, that's a different story. You know, they can look all big and defensive and scary and people stay away and that works. Think of every single dog in your neighborhood that you walk by and it puts on this big bluff display. That's what majority of people's dogs are doing that are acting defensive, because it works. The person keeps going. There's never the true fight that happens. The fight happens the moment the dog bites. And you have to let the dog bite in order to see how the dog can fight and to see what the dog can withstand before the dog is willing to fight. And a lot of dogs that put up the bigger defensive fight, like front, they're the ones that are going to fight because the nerve is not there. Defense is based on, it's a fear base. It's a natural instinct of like, it's a natural instinct to keep yourself safe. It's no, humans have the same one. I can't think of what the right wording is right now, but it's a natural instinct. And so they become defensive. And so many people want to talk shit about the dogs that seem to be more prey driven, that do protection work. And if you don't understand dogs, then of course you're going to say that. Because if you understand dogs, then you will know that even a dog that is that appears to be a sleeve happy dog, just because the trainer is a shitty trainer, doesn't mean that dog isn't a dog that will absolutely fight till the end better than a highly defensive dog. Because they can. You have to know your dogs, and you have to know how to read a dog to know where a dog is coming from. There's lots of dogs that love to bite sleeves over and over, bite. And those dogs sometimes are the worst dog that you would ever want to run into. Because a lot of the time they have so much confidence and so much arrogance in themselves that it doesn't matter what kind of pain you inflict on them, they'll keep coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back until they win. Because for them, winning is everything. The defensive dog, often what his goal is to make you run. It's not for him to win. When the dog that has a proper balance of drives and has really, really strong fight drive, for him it's about winning. And he will win at all costs. A highly defensive dog, it's about getting you away. He wants you to get away because he's very uncomfortable. And if you just keep running away every time he barks, then sure, it builds confidence. Now, if you're training a dog for your own personal protection because you're a pet owner, then that's a different story. That's how you do it. You build the dog's confidence. But if you're using dogs as breeding prospects, then you're going the slowest way possible in breeding better dogs. And so many people don't understand that. And they wonder why litter after litter, they're getting these weak-nerved dogs that are pissing, that are running, that are cowering, they're just crap. And, you know, the people who buy them complain, and it's because their selection process is poor. You cannot condition dogs that are being selected for protection breeding purposes, for a breeding program of protection dogs. You can't condition them. You have to test. And good dogs don't need conditioning. Now, if you're buying a dog as a personal protection dog for your family, for a pet, that's a different story. Then yeah, of course you condition. You know, you can cover up weaknesses, you can build a dog through his weaknesses, and you can make a dog strong. You can make most dogs strong if you're the right trainer. But so many people seem to think it's this way or that way, and it's not. It's absolutely not black or white. There's so many different things that need to be looked at. And a lot of people just don't see that. Some people do. And I just see a lot of videos circulating YouTube, and it just always blows my mind how people think it's this way or that way. A lot of people don't, which is good that there are breeders and trainers out there that know the difference. But the reality is conditioning dogs is something you do when you're training a dog to be a personal protection dog. If you're breeding dogs, you shouldn't be conditioning dogs. You should be testing your stock. And the reality is it doesn't matter what breed you're dealing with, even if it's Dutch Shepherds and Malinois, which technically are a super breed in that area, you're going to still go through a ton of dogs. I probably gave away more dogs than I ever kept when I was breeding Dutch Shepherds, because I saw weaknesses. And those dogs would bite, and they were still superstars. I have videos of some of them, and there were some of the dogs that people thought were the greatest dogs as puppies that they saw, the most pressure put on them, everything. But there was weaknesses, so they didn't stay. And that is how you have to do it. You have to be incredibly selective if you want to see your program progress forward. Otherwise, it's just going to stay the same, or it's going to go backwards. Dog breeding is not simple. Not at all. Especially when it comes to nerves. It's the hardest thing to fix. But if you're not letting your dog bite and fight, then you have absolutely no idea what your dog can do yet. And that's the truth, because it can put on a big show, but the minute it grips onto somebody's arm or leg, and that person doesn't back up, doesn't run away, doesn't do the things that the dog is anticipating will happen, so that the dog can release some of the pressure of its fear and try to push away that person, then that's where a dog has a lot of conflict, when it has a lot of defense. And it will often bite the person, let go, bite the person again, let go, then fuck off and start barking. It'll back up, bark, 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 and it won't engage again. I've seen it a million times with dogs that look so devastatingly aggressive. Dogs that even had history of biting people. Because dogs that have a history of biting people, what happens when the dog comes up and bites somebody? You get bit, you back up, you freak out, you move away from the dog, you're scared. The dog senses all that. The dog feels that it did what it set out to do, and that was move you away. So the dog feels that it accomplished its task. When a dog is doing protection work and it is really defensive, then it has a lot of fear flowing through its body, because defense is fear-based. However, you want defense in a dog because you want natural suspicion. But that's not all you want in a good protection dog. You need the natural suspicion, because some breeds don't have it. And even breeds like Dutch Shepherds and Malinois, some of them don't have natural suspicion. Pit bulls, and that's why some Dutch Shepherds and Malinois don't, because there's too much pit bull blood in them. However, when the dog bites, and it's a good dog, and it can take the pressure, and that is why you see in dog sports like Schutzhund, where the helper, decoy, agitator, whatever you want to call him, steps into the dog and strikes the whip over the dog and walks into the dog. The purpose of that is confronting the dog, and it's pushing the dog backwards, 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 and a lot of dogs are going to let go there. And a dog that has solid nerves or a dog that has been conditioned for sport will remain on the bite. However, that's why you test dogs, because a good dog that has never done that before bites the sleeve, and then all of a sudden the guy just comes into the dog, pushes the dog backwards, and strikes the dog really hard a few times, and your dog stays on while it's being tested. That's a good dog. Most of the dogs are not going to stay on, period, in a testing situation. Most will not. But you're looking for the dog that stays on during the test, because that's the good dog. That's the dog that's a quality breeding dog to produce better protection dogs. Most dogs are just going to let go. When I had the Dutch Shepherds and the Malinois, if the dogs let go, they were gone. I didn't keep them. I didn't care what their pedigree said or what else they could do, because I was looking always for the ultimate dogs. And that's how it should be done. Otherwise, you're doing a disservice to yourself, the breed, your buyers, whatever. And a lot of people seem to think, oh, if the dog bites on the sleeve and holds on and takes a stick hit, that's a shitty dog, it can be stabbed. Well, the absolute reality is dogs that redirect on a bite, and like my dog, Vivid, will redirect on a bite. She's a very defensive dog, but I've tested her in a million ways as a puppy. I know 100% she'll stay in a fight. You'll have to kill her. However, she's too defensive, which is problematic because she doesn't trust anybody but me. And I would never really want another dog that's like her. However, I love her to death, and she's almost 10, and she still acts the way she did, at 9, 10 months old. However, she, on a bite, she can understand if it's a game, and she'll stay on the bite. If a lot of pressure is applied, she comes off the bite, and it's because she's feeling that she's potentially being defeated. And that's why dogs naturally come off a bite and move around and retarget or regrip, whatever you want to call it, to different areas, because they don't feel that they're winning. So they're looking to get a different hold to try to win. So they're moving around. Now, whether that dog bites the arm or moves around, if the guy has a knife or a gun, he can still stab or shoot the dog. That means nothing. Absolutely nothing. But those dogs that bite and usually hold and fight, they're usually really arrogant, confident dogs. And they're good dogs. The problem is their training just isn't ideal. It's not that the dog isn't good. It's just the training isn't ideal. However, for police work and a lot of different types of work, that is ideal. You want the dog to bite one spot and to stay there. You don't need a dog mauling somebody and re-gripping all over the body, because that's nothing but a huge liability. Not just that, it could potentially kill somebody, especially when you're dealing with powerful breeds. So there is a purpose to teaching a dog to biting one area, holding, fighting there. Like, no person, unless you're all jacked up on crack, is going to be able to handle a dog biting your forearm and potentially breaking it and not letting go. Now, whether that dog wants to let go of there and bite your face, if you have a knife, it doesn't matter. You're still going to stab the dog. The only way you're not going to stab the dog is if the dog backs up and runs off because the dog is scared. So the people who use that argument, it's foolish. If you really look at it, it's foolish. The dog has to be in close contact with the person to fight the person. So the dog is obviously within close contact of the weapon. Doesn't matter where it's biting. Anyways, that's all I'm going to say on that topic for now. However, I just want people to realize it's not black or white. And anybody who's been around dogs long enough and seen enough dogs knows that it's not like that. That's typically how people just coming into the dog game, they always come out and seem to think that they've just discovered something new and They shout at the top of their lungs. And everybody pretty much just ignores it because you see it time and time and time again. And then eventually they either evolve and they grow and they learn, or they stay stuck where they are and they go nowhere. A couple years you don't see them anymore. So just keep on learning, people. Always keep your mind wide open and ask questions and just look as hard as you can. Study what you see.